Whenever you come to Gettysburg, you meet a lot of people with out-of-state tags. I'm currently one of them. If you were to ask one of those people why they came to Gettysburg, likely their answer is, I want to see the Civil War battlefield. I want to see where my ancestor fought. Well, did you know that Gettysburg has World War II stories? We're going to tell you one of those stories today, here on History with Waffles. I'm currently walking out where the Wheatfield is here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. But I'm not going to be talking about the Battle of the Wheatfield or that second day, that hotly contested land here, this small plot of land. What we're talking about is George J. Stembrowski. Now, George J. Stembrowski is not from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. He didn't even live here, but he currently resides in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. You see, George was brought back to Pennsylvania from Honolulu, Hawaii. He was buried there because he died during the attack on Pearl Harbor. He was in the United States Navy, and he was from Coaldale, Pennsylvania, and Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania. George's father worked in the coal mines. It's what a lot of people did in Pennsylvania, in that area, in Coaldale. It's coal country. George and Mary were the names of his parents. But they had 4 children, 2 of them daughters, 2 of them sons. Georgie would graduate high school in 1940, and he would end up joining the United States Navy shortly thereafter. His friends called him Georgie. No doubt his father probably called him Georgie or George Jr. And he had a bright future. He had a lot of aspirations, and he wanted to make a career out of the United States Navy. And all of his friends that knew him said he was a good sailor. Even his officer that wrote back home said that he died at his post in an honorable way, protecting his country. Georgie would not get to live past December 7th, 1941.
The attack on Pearl Harbor lasted about an hour and a half, unfolding in 2 waves of Japanese airstrikes. The first wave, consisting of 408 Japanese aircraft launched from 6 aircraft carriers positioned 200 miles north of Oahu, struck at dawn. A radar installation on the northern tip of Oahu, operated by Privates George Elliott Jr. and Joseph Lockard, first detected the incoming planes. However, the lieutenant on duty dismissed the threat, assuming it was a routine arrival of scheduled planes. As the Japanese forces approached Oahu, they shot down American aircraft attempting to send warning signals, leading to confusion in the communications. Upon reaching the harbor, Japanese torpedo bombers specifically targeted American battleships. Early in the attack, a high-altitude bomber hit the USS Arizona, causing its forward ammunition magazine to explode. The explosion caused the ship to sink quickly, trapping over 1,000 crew members inside. The Arizona accounted for nearly half of the total casualties. In the meantime, other battleships around the Arizona were also struck by bombs, torpedoes, and machine gun fire. Around 8 a.m., Japanese dive bombers and fighters struck 2 major U.S. Army Air Force bases, Hickam Field and Wheeler Field. Many servicemen were caught off guard, awakened by explosions and a radio announcement: "Air raid Pearl Harbor. This is not a drill." At the time, the Army's anti-aircraft guns were out of service, and their batteries were inactive. 2 Army Air Force pilots, 2nd Lieutenant Kenneth Taylor and 2nd Lieutenant George Welch, heard the attack and without orders rushed to their Curtiss P-40 Tomahawks. They took off, engaging the Japanese planes in 2 separate offensive strikes before landing to reload. Welch shot down 4 Japanese planes, while Taylor downed 2, despite being injured by enemy fire. Both pilots were among the 5 American pilots who managed to defend the skies on December 7th, earning Distinguished Service Crosses. Taylor was also awarded a Purple Heart for his injuries. A second wave of 171 Japanese planes launched at 8:55 a.m., inflicting further damage on battleships, destroyers, and airfields. Bombers targeted military airstrips, and Japanese submarines were positioned around Oahu to intercept any ships trying to escape. However, the submarine assault was far less effective than the aerial attack, with only 1 enemy serviceman captured. He was piloting a submarine that had washed ashore. By the end of the attack, 347 American aircraft were destroyed or damaged. All 8 battleships anchored at Pearl Harbor were either sunk or severely damaged. Those 6 were eventually salvaged. Key ship repair yards and ammunition storage facilities remained intact, allowing for a quick recovery effort. The attack left 2,335 Americans dead, including almost 70 civilians, many of whom were members of the fire department responding at Hickam Field.
On December 1st, 1941, the sun rose early, and so did Georgie. Georgie found out that he was promoted to Seaman First Class. And for a kid that's been in the Navy for a year back in the 1940s, that was a pretty big deal. And I'm sure he was super happy about it. Myself being a Navy veteran, you know, in the enlisted ranks, like I was, rising up in ranks is a thing of pride. It's hard work and dedication, and you're being recognized in your field of study. On December 7th, 1941, Georgie would happen to be stationed upon the USS Nevada in Pearl Harbor. They were at the hospital point, and because of the attack on Pearl Harbor, they were badly crippled. The commanding officer of that ship realized that if they end up sinking where they're at, that they're going to block the entrance and exit of that point. So he decides to move his ship and try to get it out of the way. And when he does, he then decides to breach the ship. By breaching that ship, he may have actually saved that ship. The Nevada would not sink fully. But unfortunately, guys like Georgie were aboard the Nevada, and they were dealing with the torpedoes and the firefight that's happening on board this ship. Georgie would end up being one of the 47 people that were killed aboard that ship. The walk out here at the National Cemetery is it's a beautiful, beautiful walk, very peaceful and serene. And I'll keep this camera down to a minimum simply for that reason, because it's such a honorable place. We're going to walk over here to where that sailor's grave is, and I will show you his grave. And I'll pay my own personal respects to him for the sacrifice of his life to our country at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. Words can't express how powerful it is to be in this place. That grave is just right back there over my shoulder. And when walking up on it myself, I felt a little reverence and extremely sad for the young man who never got to come home to his parents, who never got to live his life. This man was barely over 20 years of age when he lost his life in the Pacific at Honolulu. He was buried out there at Pearl Harbor after the attack on Pearl Harbor. These fields, powerful. But these cemeteries, when you walk through them, it's like a heavy weight on your shoulders, and you feel the loss of all those people, what they could have been, what they may have been, all the times that their families lost with them. It's really moving. And this isn't even the first time the story's being told about Georgie and about Pearl Harbor. And I couldn't really tell the entire story of Pearl Harbor, but I could tell a little bit about what I know about Georgie himself. A young man who's a United States Navy sailor. One thing I do know, and that's United States Navy sailors. Being a Chief Petty Officer myself, you take great pride in your sailors, and you treat them like they're one of your own, like they're one of your kids, really. And coming up in the Navy, those men and women work real hard, and they do everything they can to protect and serve and really live up to the oath that they took to protect the Constitution. I imagine Georgie being just like some of the young men and women that I served with, happy and bright and full of energy. But unfortunately, on December 7th of 1941, that life came to an end. His future came to an end, and his family would have to live with that. He wasn't brought back to Pennsylvania until about 1947 or 1949, many years after his death. But he is buried here at the Gettysburg National Cemetery. And if you go to that cemetery and look off on the right-hand side, away from where the Civil War soldiers are buried, you will see his headstone. And the lettering to his headstone is shadowed in black so that it stands out. He, along with 2 other sailors from the Pearl Harbor attacks, are buried here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I hope you enjoyed the story. Until next time, this is History with Waffles.